All right. Welcome back to another episode of The Top. The show where I interview a guest about their musical influences and experiences with music, whether it be just plain CD format or cassette or whatever, and concert experiences. And tonight my guest is Jim Boatright. Boatright
What's
Comics
up?
And family.
Glad to be here, man. Thank
How
you.
we doing,
man.
Jim?
I'm excited for this show once again. This is
Absolutely.
a new show that I'm on. Get to rehash some memories, get to talk about some of the stuff that I like. So can't wait.
Yes.
Let's do it.
That's what this it gives me a chance to get to know. I know we've talked quite a bit with you being on cover to cover with us, and I've got to know you a little better, and hopefully I can get to know you even a little better, a little more through this show. So I guess we'll get right into it. What are some of the albums and or songs, just could be just songs, that you've held tight to the chest over the years that have really inspired you or whatever?
Man, that's dude, there's so many songs. It's like trying to pick one off the top of my head is going to be pretty hard. Man, it's tough to say because like I listen to multiple genres, so I could pick a song from different genres. Realistically, but if I had to pick one right off the bat, I would have to say, it'd have to be a Johnny Cash song. What's up, Raul? I'm gonna have to say "Give My Love to Rose," Johnny Cash.
Nice.
I know that's like out in left field, but that song kind of always stuck with me because my mother's name was Rose, so that's what I don't know. That song kind of stuck with me as far as that goes. As far as growing up and having a lot of in me. There was Pantera that always stood by my side. Walk was the song that was like my go-to song for Pantera was Walk. That was my fight song.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess Misfits, the Halloween. I hold that near and dear to my heart because that was kind of my introduction to Misfits per se. And my cousin that has recently passed on, he had a band when he was alive years ago when we were younger, and that was one of the songs that he covered was Halloween.
Nice.
And so every time I hear Halloween, I always think of him also.
That's a great song. That chorus.
Love that song.
It just how over and over again. It's just freaking great. I love it.
Yes, sir.
I guess I don't think I've asked this question about bands. What is your favorite band, or what are your favorite bands or your favorite artist?
Like I said, I have multiple genres I listen. Always my go-to.
It's tough.
If it was non-genre anything, my go-to is always Johnny Cash or Elvis. That's the base of my growth. That's the pillars of my music life endeavors. Johnny Cash, Elvis. I like old music too. I like Jimmy Rogers, the real Jimmy Rogers, the singing breakman from the 20s and 30s. Tex Ritter. You know, the singing cowboy stuff, you know, the old yodeling cowboy stuff. I like metal, you know. I love, you know, like I said, Pantera's my go-to for metal. That's my favorite metal band. 6 Feet Under, that's my go-to death metal band. So, but if I had to pick one, it's always Johnny Cash. Always.
Nice. Okay, going into that, I guess we'll go deeper into that. What Johnny Cash album would you recommend to someone that's not really, that hasn't listened to him a whole lot?
Let's see. Because he has a huge variety of albums.
Yes, he does.
That's hard to say, man, because if you want to listen to the real, like, pure, what got people into Johnny Cash, you know, you just listen to the first album. I think or the first Columbia record, you know, the Fabulous Johnny Cash, or anything off of Sun Records. But his stuff with Rick Rubin, the American Recording, you know, all those albums are amazing, absolutely amazing, because especially the first American Recording, because it's just him and his guitar. So you're getting all the emotion in his aging voice with just him and his guitar. But, you know, some of the later albums, you know, American Recordings 4, 5, and, you know, that, where he's basically in his last days, some of the songs that he sings about, and basically his dying voice, you know, that kind of touches a little a chord in the old heartstrings, you know, because you know he's dying. He's still singing, he's still making awesome music, and it kind of adds to the emotion of the song of what he's singing about, you know.
Right.
Like, yeah, like particular, there's a song called what was it called? It's called 309, I think it is, and it's basically talking about his body getting put in a casket, put on the back of a train, and he's riding the 309, you know, kind of like they used to do in the old days, like with Lincoln and stuff like that. They would put him on the train, and they would basically give his casket a tour so that people can go to the train stations and see his body. Yeah, Hurt is an amazing. When I first saw that video, when it came out, that video actually made me cry.
Yeah.
It put a tear in my eye, because that was his goodbye, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if people realize he was a big fan of covering other artists, especially metal artists, because he covered Danzig, he covered Soundgarden. His Rusty Cage is freaking amazing.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. And I heard one of the artists say, once he covers your song, one of the artists that he covered, once he covers their song, it belongs to him, because it changes his cover song. He did a Danzig song, the 13.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, once you hear those songs, me personally, they're better than the originals. All his cover songs, to me personally, they're better than the original artist.
Right. And I think that denotes his experience over that, his career, you know, developing a performance, because he was a performer. So, I mean, like, my favorite is Folsom Prison, the Live at Folsom Prison record. In fact, I have it hanging on the wall over here. So, but I don't. Have you ever heard the box set Love, Death, and Murder?
I have. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a great collection.
It is. It's very good. I remember when that came out. I wish I would have got them, but I didn't. But I had, I got all the other I got all his American recordings and stuff like that, and I got a big chunk of his CDs, and now I'm building up my vinyl collection at the moment. I probably have, a little over a dozen of his vinyls, and a couple Sun Record 45s.
Nice. Well, I think I have one. It's not a Johnny Cash, but I think I have 145 that's a Sun Record. I don't even know where that came from.
Basically, let me put it this way. I love Johnny Cash so much. I named this kid. His middle name is Cash. And he was almost born on Cash's birthday. He missed it by like 2 days.
Nice. That's like my youngest. She missed. She was a day late from being born on the same day as Ozzy.
Sweet. My little one,
Britney Spears.
My little my littlest one, Abe. He was born on Waylon Jennings' birthday, and I tried and I fought hard that we almost named him first name Jennings.
Nice.
But we ended up went a different direction, but he almost became a Jennings. Yeah, I love the old outlaw music, man. You can't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I know. Merle Haggard's I'm a Lonely Fugitive. Freaking amazing. Amazing record. Did I mention I wing it? I'm gonna
Haggard, man. I was lucky enough to see Haggard live, man, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Saw Haggard once. I saw Willie once, and I saw George Jones twice. Man, if that ain't country, I'll kiss your ass.
Right.
Yeah, right. I haven't seen Co yet, but he's been in the town. But
yeah, I've never seen him either. I've seen a bunch of the old ones. I saw Bill Monroe.
Oh, sweet.
On the Opry stage. Porter Wagner. Boxcar.
No kidding. Boxcar.
Now they're all dead.
Yeah.
That was 25 years ago. So no, longer. That was 94. So that was longer than 25 years ago. I guess I'll refer back to this question.
The closest I get to disco that I like would be Blondie. Heart of Glass. I'll leave it at that. That's about as close to the disco that I get as Heart of Glass by Blondie. Only because I love Blondie and I love her punk roots.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Parallel Lines, great record. Concert experiences.
Okay. Which kind?
What are some of your best some of your favorite memories?
Man. I have a great memory with seeing Ozzy Osbourne for the first time. I have a great memory with seeing Pantera for the first time. Man, it's hard to say, man. What would you like for me to elaborate on? I got so many. Korn, the band Korn. I have a memory with them, seeing them when they were touring for their first album, back when they were cool.
Nice.
I don't know. What do you want? What do you want to hear? You want to hear some country?
The floor is yours.
Hank Williams III. I got a great story for Hank III. What do you want to hear? I'll start off with Pantera.
Okay.
Because a lot of people didn't have wasn't fortunate enough to see the great Pantera. I was approximately 16 years old. I believe I was a freshman in high school. I went to Tampa to see Pantera play. Opening acts were Soylent Green, Cold Chamber, Anthrax, and Pantera.
Oh my God.
Phenomenal show. Soylent Green, let's start the show off with Soylent Green. Very first show, I'm a young buck. I'm ready to rock and roll. It's all about moshing and stuff. Got in the mosh pit and I split my eye open. It was probably 1.5 inch laceration right above my eyebrow, almost down to the corner of my eye, where I had headbutted somebody. And, I got blood rolling down my face. Went to the bathroom. I looked at it, and, my cut looked like a freaking split open hot dog, And but before I went to the bathroom and looked at it, I went to the front of the stage, because we were practically right up front, and security went and, I said, "Hey man, I need medical help," and they're like, "Nah, we can't help you. You're going to have to go. I can't help you." I'm like, "I'm bleeding. I'm gushing. I got a laceration across my face." "Nah, we can't help you. Sorry." So I went to the bathroom and looked at my, holy crap. So I sat there for 20 minutes or so with a paper towel over my hands trying to clot the blood, from, finally stopped bleeding, So I ended up going back, watching the rest of the show. I watched Cold Chamber and then Anthrax. And then as Pantera was getting ready to come on, close your ears. Went out front with my friends. We got high, we got stoned, got baked. All right. And I came back in, and as soon as Pantera came on, my freaking head exploded. Boosh. Freaking strobe lights in every direction. Oh. The light show was like I had never seen before. I think the only other light show that I've seen that could have compared to that one when I was younger was White Zombie. So it's like the whole time everything's going in slow motion. I'm baked, and here I am. I'm looking at the pit, and the pit's going in slow motion because of the strobe lights. I'm like, man, I ain't getting in that one, no sir. But that show, man. Oh, and also before Pantera came on, it was between Cold Chamber and Anthrax. We were right up front, me and my buddy, and they had these like curtains, and the curtains, you move the curtains back, you could see backstage. So we moved the curtains back, and we look and we see Vinnie Paul back there standing drinking a bottle of beer. And we yell at him, "Hey Vinnie, give us your fucking beer, man. Let me have some of that beer." And he looked over at us and he kind of did one of these like, "Hey, cheers, man." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, and that made my night right there. Never mind the fact that I had my eye split open, all that Vinnie Paul acknowledged me while we were yelling. Just a couple kids, like I said, I was 16. I think my buddy was 15 or 16 at the time. And we were yelling, "Hey, give us your beer, Vinnie." He gave us the old nod and a little cheers, and that was it. But yeah, it made my night, man. That was a great memory I won't forget.
Nice. Yeah, that is a great feeling when they
Acknowledge you, yeah.
acknowledge your existence.
You know, like I said, he was just backstage, you know, to the side watching. I think they were, like I said, I think they were setting up Anthrax to play. And, you know, the lights were kind of up a little bit, you know, and we pulled the things back and saw him standing there. I'm like, oh my God, there's Vinnie Paul, because I grew up watching, you know, the Pantera Vulgar video, Pantera 3 Watch It Go video. So it's like, that was my high school life, was that I was quoting everything from those two videos, VHS videos I had. But yeah, I have, man, Pantera. Like I said, it's got to be Johnny Cash and Pantera. Those are like my two, you know, go-tos for everything.
You mentioned Hank Williams III.
Yeah, love Hank 3.
We did an album, great album, on Cover to Cover, from Hank Williams III, Hank 3. Can you tell us a little bit more about him and your experience with Hank?
Oh man, Hank 3. Hank 3 is like my modern go-to country guy. You know, if it ain't Johnny Cash, Hank Sr., or any of the Outlaw fellas, it's Hank 3, period. I found out about Hank 3 from a coworker back in 2003. And I had worked with him. He left. I saw him again. And he came over to the house. He's like, hey, I got something you need to check out. Check this out, you know. He put on Hank 3, and I said, dude, what is this? This is amazing. He's like, this is Hank Williams III. I'm like, no kidding. I've heard of him, but I never heard him. You know, and it was his second album. And God forbid I can't remember the name of the second album. But anyways, he played me Cecil Brown, a song Cecil Brown. And after I heard Cecil Brown, I'm like, yeah, I love this. I love this guy. And so I started following him ever since 2003. And my very first show that I went to, that I seen that he was coming to, I went with my cousin, which I mentioned earlier, the one that had the band that passed on recently. I went with him, one of my best friends from school, and another friend that, you know, we all hung out with. And we ended up getting separated because I think this was the show that Artemis Pile Driver opened up for. We ended up getting separated during the show. The one chick, her name was Sophie. She went with us. She was the one friend. And my best friend and my cousin ended up getting together. Well, my cousin at the time, he had a drinking problem. And he had a temper. You know, if his buttons got pushed, good luck. So I guess somebody pushed his buttons at this particular show, and my friend was with him trying to de-escalate the situation. And at the time, my cousin wore a horseshoe, like Elvis wore the old horseshoe ring.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess he ended up getting into an altercation. He punched my best friend by accident right in the middle of the forehead. Didn't see until after the show, because I had heard they got kicked out. You know, oh, hey, so-and-so's, you know, they got fighting, they got kicked out. I'm like, well, I ain't leaving, because Hank just got on.
Right.
I said, I ain't leaving. I paid to see Hank. I'm going to see Hank. They can just wait outside for me. That show was like, geez, it must have been a 2-hour show, because Hank always does a country set. Then he does his like hard, heavy metal set, and then he does Ash Jack. And Ash Jack's even heavier than the stuff before, you know. So it was like it had to be almost 2 hours, you know, that we watched this show. And I'm like, well, hey, I just saw Hank Williams just grab his towel, wipe the sweat off, come down the stage, and he started mingling with people. I'm like, I'm going to go meet him, you know? So I went and I met him and I had him sign something, and spur of the moment, after I had him sign something, you know what? This was back when I had a flip phone. This was the flip phone days. And so
remember them well.
So I'm like, hey man, I'm like, hey, would you mind, you know, saying a message on my voicemail for me? And so he grabbed my phone and he's like, hey, if you're looking for Jimmy, he's not here. He's leaning on the bar. You need to leave a message right now. I'm like, so I was like king forever after that, because people would call me, I'd just let it go straight to voicemail. But after the show and hanging out with Hank for a while, I met up with my cousin and my friend, and my friend, he had this big horseshoe indention right in his forehead where he got pow.
He got tattooed, man.
He got tattooed, man. And it was like, I'm like, bro, dude, who did that? He's like, your damn cousin did that. I'm like, what'd you do to him? He's like, nothing. I tried stopping some dude, spilt a beer or something on him and said, you know, F you, and he pushed them, and the end was that. So that was my first Hank 3 experience. The second one, I went when my wife was pregnant with him, and we got right up front. So his first concert inside the womb was at Hank 3, right at speaker level.
Nice.
And that was another great show too, you know. Yeah, Hank 3, man. If you guys ain't heard Hank 3, you need to check him out.
And speaking of Hank.
Oh, real quick too.
Oh,
my buddy, one of the times we had seen Hank, my buddy offered to buy him a beer, and this was always the ongoing thing with, you know, me and my cousin and my friend and stuff like that. Offered, hey Hank, and buy you a drink, buy you a beer, and he's like, I only drink whiskey. So that was always the ongoing thing with you know, my cousin. Like, you guys want to drink? I only drink whiskey.
That's great. I guess there's a culmination of those two stories, because not a culmination, but a relationship, because Hank actually played on one of the Superjoint Ritual albums.
Yep.
And then to go into it a little further is the fact that Vinny and Dimebag's dad was a country western musician. So it's like a little connected.
Yeah, and Dime and Vinny were big fans of David Allan Coe.
Right.
So much so that they later on, before Dime died, that they cut a Rebel Meets Rebel album, and David Allan Coe was singing, and, you know, Vinny and Dime were the rest of the band.
Right.
But they love David Allan Coe.
He's got a, how do I want to say it? Not a swagger, but he's got a certain way about him. It's like, you know, this cat's, he's something special.
Which one?
Yeah, Coe. David.
Yeah, he's definitely a unique individual. You see old footage of him back in the 70s, and he ain't your average country guy. He's got hair down to his butt.
Yep.
Big old bouffant, or a big old cowboy hat, big old beard. He's definitely not your average country guy. He was the epitome of outlaw.
I was just thinking that. He's the outlaw.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hung out with, you know, Hell's Angels and stuff like that. And I think that, you know, that had a lot of reason that might have drawn him to Vinny and those guys, you know, with their dad, you know.
Right.
Just being the outside. That's what always drew me to Johnny Cash, because he was like the outsider when it came to certain things, you know.
Right. original punk is what my buddy used to refer to him as.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Shocked and appalled. my first introduction to David Allan Coe was the Naughty records.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's those other songs too, you know, it's just like he's such a hell of a songwriter that it's like,
yeah,
he writes, his song writings are just amazing, you know. But I mean, then again, most of those old time singers were amazing songwriters.
Right.
Johnny Cash, Waylon, David Allan Coe, Merle Haggard, George Jones, they wrote amazing music, you know. And a lot of artists these days, you don't really hear about them writing their own music, and if they do, there's nothing memorable about it.
Right. I was just gonna say, oh, "The Ride" is probably my favorite David Allan Coe song. I love that song.
That is a great song about Hank Williams, you know.
Yep.
Giving Hank Williams Ghost a ride.
Yep. If you don't have to call me Mister. The whole world calls me Hank. I love that line.
Yep.
Favorite part of the song.
Mine too.
And
like Hank Williams Sr., man. Hank Williams Sr. is, besides Hank 3, I'd probably say Hank Sr. is my favorite Hank. Then Hank 3, and then Hank Jr.
Right.
Hank Williams Sr., dude, he is an absolute genius, man. The songs that he's done, the songwriting, holy cow. If anybody's watching, check out the song Angel of Death by Hank Williams. Dude, that song is badass.
Yes.
Angel of Death. I remember hearing that song open up for a band, one of the bands, I can't remember who it was, but they played that song as their opening song. I'm like, I think it was Social Distortion, actually. I'm like,
that makes sense.
I'm like, hell yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Hearing Hank Williams at a friggin', you know, punk rock type show, you know, it's like, that's what I'm talking about, you know, because Hank Williams Sr. deserves to be, because some of the stuff he wrote about was like, he was punk rock back in the 40s, you know?
Right. I need to listen. I haven't heard that song in quite a while. I need to listen to that again. I guess going back to records, if you had because I hate this, and I hate lists.
I hate having to pick.
if you had a selection, like on any given day, that you could play without getting tired of it, what handful of records would they be?
It would be Hank Williams, the third, Straight to Hell, for sure.
Straight to Hell. Any
of his albums, really, to be honest with you. Lovesick, Broken, Drifting. Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power. That's one of my go-tos. Oh, man. I can't really pick a Johnny Cash record because they're all good. Can I just pick a greatest hits?
Yeah.
I mean, because I can't pick somebody that I love so much. I can't pick a single album.
Right.
Per se. The Misfits, you know.
Ramones debut.
Yeah, the Ramones debut album.
Yeah.
It's not a single bad song on that one. Rocket to Russia.
Oh.
Ramones, The Clash.
I was
London
just going to say the
Calling.
Clash.
London Calling. I love the Clash, man. I love 6 Feet Under Warpath. The whole album's good.
Yes, I love Warpath. I like their first album's great too.
Yeah, Haunted.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was my introduction to them.
nice.
That's a funny story you say that because I was straight up hooked on Haunted. I'm like, this is the best album ever. There ain't no album gonna beat this one. And then when not Haunted, but Warpath came out, I'm like, because Chris Barnes changed his vocals a little bit in the way he sang. I'm like, when it came out and I heard it for the first time, I'm like, it's good, but I'm like, it's kind of weird, you know? It's like his voice is giving out on him, you know? It's like he was doing something different with his voice that wasn't common with death metal at the time that he had just come from. And to me at the time, it sounded like his voice was going out. And so he was just making do with what he did. But as I look back, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. You know, on top of it's different from when it came out, it was different from death metal that he came from. He was adding a little something different to it to where you can understand certain words that he was saying or sing in a certain way.
Right.
And that album blew my mind, you know, at the time.
You're talking about some of the higher pitches that he sang in.
Or he would drag out and you can actually hear
Right.
him. I'll be there. You know, going from a growl to I'll be there. Yeah, it's
I mean, he was trying to be creative, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I hold Chris Barnes up here for, because he actually was being creative and actually stepping outside of the box that he was known for. But dude, there's so many great albums, you know. There's so many great albums.
A good one?
Like Moody Blue, Elvis Presley, Moody Blue album. His last album he did.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that album. And there's actually a couple songs on that album that when I got married, I danced to my wife, or, you know, we played at our wedding reception. Man, it's hard to say, bro. There's so many good albums.
I know
Then you get into like bands that you like nobody heard of, you know. There's a band called The Creep Show, or they're not the same band anymore, but a band called The Creep Show. And a chick named Sarah Blackwood used to sing for them back in the day. Well, she ended up leaving and going and doing a complete opposite genre. She's doing like pop music now.
Okay.
But it was like psychobilly. Her sister, I'm sorry, she was the guitar player. Her sister was a singer of the band. Her sister got pregnant, left the band, and then something. I think she took over, and then she ended up leaving. They replaced her, and then she went to doing pop music. But I can't remember the name of the album, but the Creep Show album was absolutely phenomenal. If you're into psychobilly, rockabilly type stuff. Tiger Army. I love Tiger Army and Nick 13. Yeah. You know, Nick 13's solo album is one of those albums you just put on and just chill, man. Because I went through a long period of time where I was in the rockabilly and psychobilly. So, like, I freaking love Reverend Horton Heat.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I want to take Little Boat to see Reverend Horton Heat so bad. He's coming to play, or he might be playing soon. But I ain't got the funds to go take him at the moment. But one day I'm going to take him to see Reverend Horton Heat. I've seen Reverend a few times. Phenomenal musician. Phenomenal music. There's a lot of unknown bands as far as the rockabilly goes, like Hot Rod Walt and the Psycho DeVilles. Amazing band. Like I said, it all depends on what you're looking for as far as punk, rock, country, bluegrass. I love bluegrass music. Hit me with it. I love it.
Right. Trying to think of the name of that. My
And it's hard for me to remember album names because I haven't looked at an album like like I used to back in the day. You buy an album, you got it in front of you, you read it from front to cover, you look at everything on that album as you're listening to it. Now everything's so digital that you don't have, I like I said earlier, I put on AC/DC Highway to Hell. I put it on my phone on Pandora. I listen to it. I jam out to it. But I'm not getting the same feeling like I used to when I was a kid, where you just sit there and look at the cover, go through the book, read the lyrics, or the band thanks so and so. So a lot of the bands that I like that I haven't heard in a long time, I can't remember their album names. But another great artist too, if people are into the alternate country, is Wayne the Train Hancock. He's Hank Williams III referred to him as the modern day Hank Williams. He sounds a lot like Hank Williams, and he's one hell of a songwriter. And on one of the couple of the Hank albums, he covered quite a few Wayne the Train songs. Thunderstorms and Neon Signs, that's an amazing song. Cold Wind. Juke Joint Jumping. Yep. Yeah, Hank Wayne the Train's awesome. Lucky Tub. A lot of people ain't familiar with Lucky Tub. He came out with 2 or 3 albums, I believe. He was the great nephew of Ernest Tubb.
Oh, okay.
And his first album, Damn to Luck, is amazing. And we went and saw him when he was touring with that album. And a buddy of mine, he had made some moonshine, homemade moonshine. And after the show, or before he went on, we saw him and talked to him and said, "Hey man, we like to hook you up, man. You want some moonshine?" He's like, yeah. He's like, "Meet me after the show out back." So after the show, we went to the car, we grabbed a big old mason jar of moonshine, went back to where their van was. He was out there, "Hey man, we got this stuff for you." He's like, "All right." He was kind of iffy about taking it, which I don't blame him. He's like, "Well, I drank some stuff up in North Carolina that almost ended my career." So he's like, so we pretty much had to drink it before he would take it. So we took a big swig. My buddy took a swig, and we gave it to him. He took a swig, and we're sitting Indian style in a little circle with friggin' the great nephew of Ernest Tubb, the pillar of country music, and he's friggin' cool as hell, and we're sitting there, we're talking, and he pulls out of his pocket and he started rolling a joint, and he's like, "Hey, you guys want some?" I'm like, "Nah, we can't do that where we work." But we sat and we broke moonshine with Lucky Tub, and he was a great guy. And he ended up coming back to our town later on, and a couple of buddies of mine hung out with him afterwards, and they went from bar to bar and ended up getting kicked out of a couple of different bars. He was that cool of a dude, he went drinking with us.
Nice. Mark asked a question. If you've ever heard of the band Ghoultown?
I haven't heard Ghoultown because I haven't been into the psychobilly in like a while. When I was into it, a lot of the bigger bands was like the Horror Pops, the Necromantics. I love the Gutter Demons. They were an amazing band. Those were like the big ones, at the time. I have not heard them. And I have some albums of some like local type bands and stuff like that, but I can't think of their names off the top of my head. But I always kind of considered Reverend Horton Heat kind of a psychobilly, except he wasn't the extreme like punk rock version. But I haven't heard of him, no. Blues? I don't dabble into blues too much. As far as blues, blues musicians or whatever, what's his name? Howlin' Wolf Jack or whatever. He's the one I really, really love.
Yeah, he had that was a big man too.
Yeah, I like Howlin' Wolf.
Howlin' Wolf is a big guy.
I dig the BB King, and the popular stuff, but I've always been a fan of music that wasn't as popular. So I mean, and that comes with everything when it comes to the rockabilly, the psychobilly, the country, the rock and roll, the punk, everything. I've always been a fan of the guy who isn't necessarily on the forefront, except for Elvis and Johnny Cash and those type people. But
right, yeah, that's why I mentioned about those obscure early 70s rock bands that nobody has ever heard of. I like to dive deep into those bands, Granicus and Leaf. Marky Ramone, the band that he was in when he was
Dust.
still Mark Bell, Dust.
Yeah.
Great band. But yeah. Dogs of War I've heard of.
I haven't heard of them either. I definitely would like to check them out.
I don't think I've ever listened to any of their stuff, but a buddy of mine several years ago now, because he's no longer with us, he gave me his portable hard drive, and I dumped it, the contents, onto a computer, and I think Dogs of War was one of them that was on it. But probably shouldn't say that on a live stream, but come get me.
Yeah, right. Get some. Yeah, there's another question there. What's my favorite show I've ever seen? I have a couple favorites that really stand out, and they were probably the last couple shows that I've seen. One of which was Madball. Went and seen Madball in Tampa with this guy. Took him. He was like biting knee highs. He was biting knees at the time. Had a great experience. The show was amazing. Got to see a band called Vietnam and Cold Side play, open up. And it was kind of a last minute show because they originally playing probably like an hour and a half away. Well, the venue or something happened, fell through. So they did a last minute show. So they scheduled a show in Tampa for the same night. And it was at the Tampa skate park. And they have like a little room in the skate park thing, and they set up there and we watched the show. Amazing show.
People were stage diving into like 3 people in the crowd.
Because it was last minute, there was like hardly anybody there. I think by the time Madball went on and it was like full blown like show, there might have been 50 people there or so, 100 at the most. And during Vietnam, a singer slash like he's like a hardcore rapper, I guess you can say, is Scam Dust. Well, Scam Dust, he came down and he saw that me and him got kind of hit because we were standing by the pit, and he got hit, so I was kind of checking on him. Well, Scam Dust came down and said, "Hey, little man, come here, man." And so he like walked him to the side of the stage. I'm like, dude, that's friggin' awesome. He's gonna let him watch from the side of the stage. Then that way I ain't gotta worry about him getting hit from the moshers and stuff like that. Next thing I know, he's walking him up on stage. So he's sitting in the middle of the stage, and like Scam Dust had a mic because he was with the band and stuff, but he wasn't performing. He's kind of like tagging on. So they like between songs, and they get down. The guitarist gets down with him, and like, hey man, gave him the microphone. And said, hey, sing something, And he like froze. He was so young, he just kind of like stood there and froze. He's like, he was kind of like looking around for me if he could see me out in the crowd, and I'm like, say something. Then like after them, like, come on, man, say something. Basically, he went, ooh. That was a great. Then after Vietnam and Coldplay played and Madball came on, we sat on the side of the stage, on the other side by the door, and Freddie Madball gave me a shout out. You got an awesome dad over here. This and that. Bringing up the new hardcore generation, and I'm like, hell yeah. So that was an amazing show. That was his first real concert that he went to, was Madball. The next one was, as Mark said, friggin' Agnostic Front. We went and saw Agnostic Front at the Brass Mug in Tampa, which is a little small venue. And my man got to meet the whole band. We got to meet Vinny.
Except the drummer.
Well, we didn't meet the drummer, but we peed next to him. We were in the bathroom together, peeing beside each other. I don't want to say anything, that's you don't talk during that time.
That's quiet time.
But he got to meet Mike Gallo, Roger Merritt, Vinny Stigma, Craig Silverman, and that show for me, that was my first Agnostic show. But I had seen Roger perform with Roger Merritt and the Disasters, like a decade or more before that, before me and my wife got married. We'd went and seen Roger Merritt and the Disasters. So actually finally getting to see Roger with Agnostic Front and having my oldest child with me, it was absolutely one of the most memorable shows that I've seen. Period.
Nice.
And I love Agnostic Front. He loves Agnostic Front. We are like Agnostic Front people, souls.
It's really, really cool for him to have had that experience.
Yeah. And I mean, any of the New York hardcore scene, I freaking love, man. My first hardcore show back when I was like 17 or something like that, my cousin, I mentioned again, he's like, hey, I'm gonna buy you a ticket. Let's go to the show. I'm like, who we seeing? He's like, Sick of It All. I'm like, I never heard of him. He's like, oh, you're gonna love him. All right. Went and seen that show. That was against the Rope Shore show. It was Hot Water Music. I can't remember the other band. And AFI and Sick of It All. And AFI, when they came out, that just absolutely blew my mind, because at the time, Davy Jones, the singer, he was doing the devil lock like Misfits. He come out basically looking like Glenn Danzig in the early 80s, late 70s, and they did Halloween, the song Halloween.
Nice.
They had pumpkins on all over the place on the speakers and stuff like that. He did Halloween. It was practically like watching the Misfits, basically. And that blew my mind, because I'd never heard of AFI at the time either. But then when Sick of It All came on, I'm like, holy crap, that's got to be like one of the most brutal pits I've ever seen in my life. And so that made a big indention in my memory too, because that was my first hardcore show, was Sick of It All.
Nice.
I have not heard of Brother's Keeper.
If I'm reading that right, that was a band that Mark was in.
Yeah. What do you play, Mark?
That's awesome. I think he plays guitar.
I touch on everything, man. Like I said, I love, sometimes it depends on my mood. Sometimes I feel like I'm more of a punk mood. Sometimes I'm hardcore. Sometimes I'm death metal. Sometimes I'm country, and then sometimes I'm hip hop. I love 80s hip hop. The Run DMC and the Grandmaster Flash and the Fat Boys and all that stuff, What is it? The Furious Five.
Yep.
Stuff like that. I'll put on Run DMC radio on Pandora, and I'll just jam all day long. Old House of Pain, stuff like that. I love too. I'm not just a one-track guy. I like everything. I always tell people, I like people from the Carter family to Cannibal Corpse.
That's the way I've always been. Very eclectic in my taste in music. Except for my college years, it was nothing. Everything and nothing but metal. We'll say that.
That was my high school years. It was all metal. It started out as my middle school years started out as classic rock. And then as I got deeper into high school, it was just straight death metal.
Yeah.
And that was because, my first experience with Pantera was Thanksgiving Day. I want to say I was probably in 6th grade going into 7th grade. Or I was in 7th grade in middle school. And me and my cousins, we went out for a ride. Well, after we ate Thanksgiving dinner, one of my cousins seen somebody who wanted to fight. The other cousin's like, "Hey, I got something." He put in the old Pantera cassette tape, and it was Vulgar Display of Power. I'm sitting in the back seat of this car, this Mustang. I'm like, "What is this? This is awesome. What are we listening to?" And ever since then, I had been, at first he was my go-to because my oldest cousin, he went to prison when I was in, I think 5th grade. He ended up going to prison. And so his younger brother at the time, he was kind of my go-to, as far as music, so when he introduced me to Pantera, I'm like, went and got some Pantera CDs. I'm like, "Dude, this is awesome, dude." And he's like, then I went to him like a dealer. I'm like, "Hey, you got anything else? You got anything heavy? Heavier? Is there anything up there heavier?" And I was telling him, he gave me a cassette tape of Death. And I can't remember which album it was, but dude, I jammed out on that Death album for a while before he's like, "Hey man, I need to get that. Can I get that album back? I need to get that tape back." I'm like, "All right, man." But yeah, that was my introduction to like real heavy music, was that Thanksgiving Day. And I always say I am thankful that I was blessed by the gods or whatever to give me Pantera as my like introduction, So that's probably a reason why Pantera is my main staple. They're the meat on the plate.
It's a good main staple to have. Because I got all of the music I listened to, I got introduced to late in the game. Wasn't until college I got into a lot of that stuff. Some of those bands, like my favorite band, Iron Maiden, I had heard of, but I'd never heard of any of their stuff until I was in college. Just like Pantera.
Same here. I think I was 18 years old when I bought my first Iron Maiden album, And I, like I said, like just like you, I had never heard their music. I've always heard of them. I never heard them. And when, like I said, when I was a kid, my cousin went to prison. I remember he always had a Aces High poster in his room when I was real little. So I always remember the Aces High poster he always had by his bed, you know. I'm like, oh, it's freaking awesome. So that was my first introduction to Iron Maiden, but that was visually. I didn't hear them until, like I said, I was about 18, and a family member of mine recommended Peace of Mind. Oh, check out Peace of Mind. That's a great album. So I went and bought Peace of Mind on CD, and like, damn, this album's awesome. But that was the only album I had bought at the time, because like I ended up getting into a car accident. I lost that CD because it got, you know, blown out of the car as the car was flipping. So I lost a lot of music in my car. I was in a car accident when I was about 18, 19 years old. And as the car was flipping, all my possessions in the car was just blowing all over the road and stuff like that. So I lost a big chunk of my music collection during that accident. So at the time, you know, by the time I got healed and stuff like that and everything else that was going on, I kind of put Iron Maiden, you know, in the back burner and never really advanced on anything. So Peace of Mind was my first and only album that I bought at the time. But I'm trying to get some of the vinyl collected.
Yeah.
I
have that's one that I have on vinyl. I have that one, and I have the first album, and I have Number of the Beast on vinyl. I don't have Killers, which is I should, because it's the album that got me into Iron Maiden, but you know. So
and I saw the first album at Walmart on vinyl. I'm like, I'm gonna buy it, but I can't buy it now because it might be a Christmas present. It might not.
It might not. Yeah, there's always that gap in months. You got to wait and see what happens on December 25th.
That's the thing, you know. I got my boy, you know, he's getting into a lot of that music that I listen to, and he's discovering music that I heard of, and he would listen to it and stuff like that. So he's kind of showing me, he kind of got me back into like some of the death metal and the death, and you know, I went and bought a 6 Feet Under vinyl, the Warpath on vinyl.
Nice.
So he kind of got me getting back into the thing, you know. Found a love for Exodus, you know. So now I'm like real deep into Exodus because of him. You know, bands that I wouldn't normally had got into before, because one, I didn't have the internet necessarily to like lead me and guide me and find all this stuff. Because by the time the internet came around, I kind of like gravitated away from like the death metal and the hard metal and stuff like that. And I got into like psychobilly and rockabilly and country and all that stuff. So now I'm like, I had some old death metal CDs I've passed down to him, like Suffocation and
oh my God, I haven't heard them in a long time.
6 Feet Under and
Sepultura, all that.
You know, Sepultura and some what else do I got? Dying Fetus. You know, I got like three albums of Dying Fetus. I used to love those guys. Compilation album that has like a 2-disc set with just all kinds of death metal bands that'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's listening to that stuff now, so it's kind of like I'm hearing him listen to it, and so I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. So it's getting me back into the death metal also.
Nice.
But for most of the time, like when he was born and up until recently, I pretty much just listened to, besides, you know, the old country music, it was pretty much like hardcore and punk, or hardcore punk, you know, like the Black Flags, Minor Threat, you know, Bad Brains, Circle Jerks, you know, all those type bands, you know. Oh, that's cool. See that? What Mark said? They cover 6 Feet Under, Ghost of the Undead.
Nice.
And he listens to the Bee Gees still.
Yeah.
See, that's my kind of person right there. You know, you got a wide range of music. You know,
Right.
that's one thing I always was kind of bothered by that. You know, when people were like, I only listen to this and this only. You know, and sometimes like when you get a persona of like certain musicians, you think those musicians only listen to that one type of music that they play.
Mm-hmm.
So I always enjoy hearing when other music, oh, I like, you know, this over here, or this, like freaking Daryl McDaniels, Run DMC, you know, he's like, he credits, what's her name? Sarah McLachlan for saving his life. with the one song, the, something of an angel, or
Yeah.
I mean, so he's like, yeah, this hip hop guy over here, and he's like, listen to Sarah McLachlan. You know, that stuff I enjoy, and I enjoy the transparency of certain artists that will come out and say, I love this too and this. You know, also real quick, now that I thought about it by saying that, a couple of the best shows that I've ever seen was bands that really nobody ever heard of. One band was called the Dempseys. They were out of Memphis, Tennessee. They were a rockabilly band. And they were blessed by the legendary Sam Phillips, who founded Sun Records,
Nice.
Elvis, all those guys. This was in his later years, and he is quoted by saying, this is the best band I've ever seen in my life, period. I've seen them a couple times. They are performers. You know, they actually perform, and you like enjoy, like, they don't just sit there and sing, you know, they actually do stuff. It's a 3-piece band. Throughout the show, they rotate. The guitar player will go to bass, the bass player will go to drums, the drum will go to guitar, and they just rotate kind of throughout the show. And absolutely phenomenal. And the other one that puts on a great show that I really, really love is a band called the legendary Shack Shakers. I spent a lot of time listening to those guys too, you know, and I would recommend those. If you can find those guys, I would listen to those guys too.
That kind of sounds like we had a local band called Velveeta, and they would do that. They would all change during the show. Yeah, it was kind of neat. They put on a really good show.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I don't know if they're still playing out or not.
Like the Dempseys even did the old thing like I remember seeing when I was a kid on Hee Haw with Roy Clark and I think Buck Owens. It would be the two of them playing one guitar. You know, Buck Owens would be playing, and Roy Clark would be leaning over his shoulder, and he'd be working down the lower part of the neck of the guitar, and he'd be picking stuff. And they would do that kind of stuff too. You know, the bass player would put his bass down, and they would do a couple songs where it was just instrumental, and the bass player would lean over the guitarist, and he would be playing the same guitar, and it was just like, dude, these guys are amazing. Why? As a matter of fact, real quick, the band the Dempseys that I'm talking about, if you ever seen the movie Walk the Line about Johnny Cash, they were the Dempseys was Elvis Presley's band in that movie.
Okay.
So if you ever go back and watch Walk the Line, the band that plays with Elvis in the 50s, and that was the Dempseys.
That's really cool.
And they were a cool band, dude. They were absolutely cool. So cool that after one of the show, I was completely drunk, and I was looking to buy an upright bass to learn how to play bass guitar upright, because I wanted to play the slap, you know, because like I said, I was into rockabilly and stuff. After a show, I was talking to him, hey, I've been looking to get a bass. What's a good inexpensive bass? What kind of strings should I use? What kind of strings do you use? And he gave me the lowdown. And he's like, come on up here, man. Come on up here. So he let me come up on stage after the show ended while everybody's breaking everything down. He's like, pick it up, play it, man. So he let me pick up his upright bass and sit on stage and just doom, 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 doom,
Nice.
just play his bass. I'm like, and I have an old picture. Like I said, that was the flip phone error, you know. So I have a picture from a flip phone of me sitting on stage wearing a Johnny Cash shirt while playing this dude's bass.
Nice.
But yeah, they were phenomenal band, man. I wish they were still around, but they broke up shortly after I discovered them.
That kind of sucks.
But also too, you know, I like oi music, you know, like Cock Sparrow, the business. Who else? There's some other bands, you know, obscure bands like Lion's Law. I like Bishop's Green, Noise. I can't think of the main ones, man. The Cockney Rejects. Cockney Rejects. I found a lot of these English oi bands from the football club I like, the West Ham United. A lot of those guys grew up in East London, so they would sing. You know, Cockney Rejects did "Forever Blowing Bubbles," stuff like that. You know, some of these guys would come out and say, you know, hey, we're West Ham supporters and stuff like that. The business was West Ham. So like, hey, I love these guys. That's my team. So that's kind of one of the main reasons why I jumped onto West Ham, on top of not only are they historically went down as shipbuilders, my name being Boatright, and my name kind of originated not too far from where West Ham United started. So that's why I'm a West Ham United fan, because Cock Sparrow, the business, even Iron Maiden, the bass player from Iron Maiden, he's a big West Ham guy. He always has a West Ham sticker on his bass.
Yeah. Well, that was all the questions I had, other than my closing questions.
Okay.
So I guess we'll get right into it with the
10 questions.
The Bernard Pivot questionnaire. What is your favorite word?
Mom.
Nice. What is your least favorite word?
Cancer.
Yeah. What turns you on?
Redheads.
Now that I can agree with. What turns you off?
Laziness.
I thought you were going to say blondes. What sound or noise do you love?
That one was kind of a tough one, because I kind of have two. I love hearing my children laugh. You know, that's kind of a common answer. But I also really love hearing the national anthem. Every time I hear the national anthem, if I'm at a sporting event or something like that, the hairs on my arms always stand up every time. So one of those two.
Okay. What sound or noise do you hate?
I hate hearing people chew food. I hate it with a passion. It's like, shut your damn mouth. Chew your food with your mouth closed. Smacking, you know, you smack when you eat. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, that makes me so mad.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
That's pretty common.
Yeah. Because you can use it for everything, you know?
Oh yeah, that's the most versatile word in the English language. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I've always been interested and always dreamed about doing horror makeup for movies, you know.
Nice.
That was always something I've always wanted to do and obviously never did and probably never will. But that's something I always really wanted to do was horror makeup.
What profession would you not like to do?
I would probably say the worst profession that I would not like to do would be law enforcement or prison guard, because that takes a special type of person.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's something I just would not want to do.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you enter the pearly gates?
You were a damn handful, but I'm very proud of you. Come on in. Your family's over there waiting on you.
Nice. All right. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I learned quite a bit more about you, and you shared some really cool stories. It's nice that you have those memories, you know, and you have those memories with your boys. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's something to hang on to.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's something to pass on, because once I'm gone, they'll have that memory forever, you know, and that means the most for me than anything, because, you know, memories live forever as long as they're shared.
Right.
You know, so I enjoy sharing stuff with my son that like the music I listen to and stuff like that, because he's now showing interest in it too, and he's showing me stuff. So now we're like just like old buddies, you know, back when you were kids and hey, I got this new album, check it out, type thing, you know. And that's one of the things I love most, is being a kid or a high schooler and stuff like that. You know, it's like, you know, you find a new album, you like it. First thing you did was share it with your friends. Hey,
Right.
check this out. Check this out. You know, and I tell him, you know, about discovering bands. It's easier now than it was back then when I was young and when you were young. You know, I either took a chance on buying something I seen in the store by the album artwork.
Yeah.
Or I would use the special thanks section of the CD that I bought that I really love. And I see all the bands and it's like, okay, that band, all right, I'm going to check out their CD next time I go to the record store, CD store, you know, and I would pick up their albums. And, you know, so it was just a crapshoot back in the day, you know. That's my most fond memory, is just taking chances on certain bands and music. And now I get to experience it all over again with my son. You know, he's getting into music. Like I said, he's getting into music I've heard of, but I never heard. You know, like, oh, I got to get a Bolt Thrower album.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, I heard them, but I never heard of them. So
Good.
now I pull up Bolt Thrower and I'm like, dude, these guys are pretty all right, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel young again with my kid, you know, and that's the best part for me. And then once, you know, the day comes that I finally leave this earth, he'll have that memory, and then he can pass that on to his kids.
Right.
And do the same thing. Or, hey, my dad liked this. Your granddad used to like this. You know? But it's awesome, man. Music is the biggest part of my life. My biggest love of my life is music. And it's the one thing that makes me happy more than anything. Just because I listen to a wide variety, so I can set the mood
Right.
anytime I want. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the one thing that I take out of music in general is there's so many different flavors out there. You know, you could get lost in it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a spider web of just straight entertaining goodness, you know.
Right.
So, yeah,
Well,
man,
again, I want to thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed this
Aaron,
show. I wish
yes.
every show was like talking about music like this, you know. I mean, I know we do cover to cover and stuff like that, but sometimes I, just like you, I enjoy hearing stories that you wouldn't commonly hear from one or the other, because you know, you normally don't get that time to just get to know somebody.
Right.
So I definitely appreciate you for inviting me on the show, and you learning a little bit about myself.
I also want to thank everybody who popped in the chat.
Yeah.
Brother Raul, highly a comic bro. Biggie popped in. Mark Knapp 68. I'm gonna have to get you on here, brother.
Yeah, I like to watch that one.
Yeah. And Aggro, I believe he's had some musical playing experience as well. So definitely be interested to get him on here if he's willing. But that concludes this episode of The Top. I guess I'm going to reach out to somebody, probably Mark.
Do Mark. I want to see Mark.
For
Come
my
on,
next
Mark.
guest. And I guess get out there and listen to some music.
Yes, sir. Do it.